our journey on the light. Okay, so this is the next chapter where we will discuss why we called dual nature of light. Dual nature of light. Now if you see, till now what we have learnt basically in the light, first in the light we got a corpuscular theory. In the corpuscular theory they told, okay, light is made up of a particles. It is a made up of particles, and based on this only we have got a new branch of physics we call ray optics, and where we learnt in detail what we call the reflection, refraction. This is what we have learnt. Okay, so corpuscular theory helped us to understand that how the light travels. So light travels in a straight line and other things, all those from class 6th onwards we were learning. We were learning the corpuscular theory. Then after that we got a Huygens. So this corpuscular theory was given by the Newton. Then came the Huygens. So Huygens gave us no, light is a wave. Okay, so started the wave theory. He told it is not made up of particle, it is made up of wave fronts, and those wave front actually travels. Because of that we get a new wavelets, and they are the new source of that, the new wave front, and that's how it travels. Now based on this, Huygens was able to explain the reflection. He was able to explain the refraction, and after refraction, one more peculiar thing that he mentioned, that whenever the light ray goes from rarer to denser, it bends towards the normal. So this is rarer, this is denser, it bends towards the normal. So if this is my velocity v1, this is my velocity v2, v2 will be less than v1. Whereas in the corpuscular they told v1 will be, okay, v2 will be greater than v1. So later the Foucault was a scientist who measured this, and he found out this is correct and this is wrong. So there was a belief, yeah, that means light may be wave. Okay, light may be wave, we don't know yet. Later there were few, because the thought process was, for wave to travel we need a medium. Medium is required. Okay, this was the thought process at that time. But light is coming from sun to us. There is no medium in between. That means light can't be wave. But later when the Maxwell came and he gave the electromagnetic theory. Okay, and in the electromagnetic wave theory he actually told that light is nothing but it's an electric field and magnetic field. They both are at perpendicular like this. So electric field is there, magnetic field is there, and this is, if you see the velocity of this, it comes out to be speed of light. Then he told actually light is nothing but it doesn't need a medium, because electromagnetic wave doesn't need a medium. So that's how everyone started believing, yes, then light can be a wave. Yes, then it is possible. Then light can be a wave. Okay. So Maxwell gave, then the Hertz also did the experiment. We discussed the Hertz experiment little bit also. Okay. But still this was not conclusive to tell that light is a wave. Okay. We were not so much confident light was a wave, light is a wave. Then what happened after that? We got to know little bit more about Young slit experiment. So Young did the experiment, and he actually told that light can do the interference. Interference. Interference, that means we will get dark, bright, bright, dark like that. And this is only possible by wave. Particle cannot do this. And this is happening with the light. That means light is a wave. This was the, we can say, sensational experiment which 100% confirmed light is a wave. And then there are series of experiment happened. We got a diffraction. There also again proved light is a wave. We got polarization. Again it proved light is a wave. All these phenomena, everyone proved that light is a wave. Light is a wave. So around 1887, everyone believed that light is a wave. Light is not a particle. Light is wave. Then something happened and again this thought process started changing. Question is what? Okay. Remember, at this point of time, we were not aware about the any kind of atomic structure. We were not, so there is no atomic structure is known to us. We were not aware anything. Later, so around what you call 1895, 1895, okay, what do you call Rontgen discovered X-ray. Discovered X-ray. Okay. Now, apart from that, in this at this time, a lot of experiment started working on conduction of electricity. Conduction of electricity. So, how the electricity conduct? Now, around 1897. Okay, around 1897, what was happened? Lot of electric discharge experiment happened. Electric discharge. So what they used to take, basically they used to take a rod, okay, like a small tube. In this they take out all the airs. Here they have put a two electrode, and this is connected to the battery. Okay, voltage. And inside this, okay, inside this they basically have port. So one is a positive terminal, one is a negative terminal. So one is positive, one is negative. And what they see, if they put a this like a spark here, or some sort of a what do you call a screen, glowing screen, fluorescent screen, or let's say it puts here somewhere, fluorescent screen. What they see, the particle is actually coming from here and striking. They see some sort of a glow. Some sort of a glow is happening. What is the glow? So in this case, there is no air, there is no medium basically. It's approximately 0.001 mmHg. That means it's a very, very low pressure, almost negligible. And what they see, whenever they apply some sort of an electric field or magnetic field here, they see like this particle is moving. And that's how electron discovery happened. Electron discovery. And this was done by J.J. Thomson. J.J. Thomson told, okay, that every atom consists of some particles. because of which, okay, which is a negatively charged particle. And they gave the name, this is a cathode ray tube initially. So this is the cathode ray tube experiment. So J.J. Thomson also confirmed that hypothesis, and he was able to calculate what is called a E by M ratio. What is the ratio of this particle? Because if you are saying that atom, earlier the thought process was atom is basically is undivisible. You cannot divide that. It is not further cuttable, uncuttable basically. But this experiment actually told us no, you can cut it. Inside that electron, it is made up of, every electron is made up of further smaller particle called electron. Now the question came, what is the electron mass, what is the charge, because this electron was negatively charged particle. So J.J. Thomson was not able to find out the exact value, but he was able to find out the charge to mass ratio from this cathode ray tube. Okay, and after this, okay, after this what happened? Furthermore experiment started happening. Furthermore experiment started happening. So then after that we know that in the atom, if you have a positively, atom is a neutral. We know that atom is neutral, and you are saying inside the atom we have a negatively charged particle. That means something positively should also be there. So they told yes, there is a positively charged also. Proton, that's how the proton discovery happened. So proton was discovered, and then after that Chadwick did the neutron discovery. So electron, proton, neutron model started coming up. Okay, neutron discovery happened much later because it's a neutral. Neutral people are uh, get discovered very little, very late. Post that, once we have got this discovery, we were interested to find out what is E, what is the charge on the electron. Okay, so charge on the electron. Remember who gave the charge on the electron? How we get to know charge on the electron?
Q is equal to n times number of electrons into charge of each electron.
No, no, I'm asking which scientist actually discovered.
Coulomb.
Pardon?
Coulomb.
No, 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 no. It was Millikan.
All right. He did a Millikan oil drop experiment.
Correct, 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 correct. So after that, Millikan oil drop experiment happened. And based on that, Millikan basically told us that charge is quantized. Quantized. What is the meaning of quantized? Is that charge is an integral multiple of number. That means you can have charge in the 1.6 into 10 to the power minus 19 coulomb order. You cannot give a charge less than that. That is not possible. And whatever the next charge that you give, it will be multiple of this, integral multiple. Okay, integral multiple of this you will get. So that was the main thought process, and from this we got what is the charge on electron. Then we also got what is the mass on electron. 9.1 into 10 to the power minus 31 kg, because E by M ratio was given by J.J. Thomson already. Okay. Now, so this was the this. So till now, what we were aware that every atom basically consists of a proton, neutron, and electron is outside. Everyone was aware this. But this is a little long. Our history, see the all these experiments that we are learning, all the knowledge that we have, this doesn't happen at the same time. They were in bits and pieces here and there. What we were and based on this bits and pieces learning, we were able to reach up to this level. Okay, so it didn't happen like in a single shot, but this was the time frame around 1913, 1913, just 100 years before. Okay, all these experiment concluded. So just 100 years before we were aware that electron exists, and this is the charge on electron, this is the mass of electron. Now question is how this is useful. Okay, we were also aware of that every metal, so every metal conduct electricity, conduct electricity. We know, we were aware of this, but how it conduct electricity we were not aware. So that's why you see, like whenever we have like a bulb, if we connect to the battery, this we used to call the positive terminal, and this you call the negative terminal. So here what you see, like a positively charged particles are going, but in every metal, because this transmission will happen only in the metal. This is the metal wire, na? Metal wire. If this will happen in the metal wire, so in the metal, if you see, let's say for an example, copper we take. Copper has basically positively charged nucleus and electron around this. By 1915, we were aware of this model. Before that, no. So then, that means what is happening? Will this positive charge actually go from here to here? Because that's what our assumption is. Answer is no, they can't go. It's a very heavy. Copper nucleus is a heavy. It's not possible. Then who goes? It is actually the electron goes. So this is the way the electron goes. It is not the. Then the question came, okay, that's why we call two kinds of current. We call conventional current. Conventional current. Okay, conventional current means the current basically which flow from positive to negative terminal, assumed that it is a from positively charged particle. We assume like a positively charged particle is traveling. Then there comes the this electron flow. This was the another thing. So electron flow current. Ideally, we should say that electrons are flowing, not the positively charged particle. But everyone was aware of this from 100 years. How can you break that belief? It was not possible. Okay. Suppose we all know that our right hand is basically this, left hand is this. Suppose somebody tells it should be ulta. It is very difficult to change now. So they told, okay, doesn't matter, because finally the current is flowing, whether this side or that side doesn't matter. So they told, okay, conventional current is like this. Now the question came that how this actually conduct the electricity. So they started learning about this. And they gave the model that inside this there are so many nucleuses are there. There are billions of atoms na, in a piece of metal. All these are the nucleus. All are the nucleus. Now what happens inside the metal? Inside the metal you have these electrons, and these electrons basically keep on traveling, but they can keep travel others also. They can go like this also. They can go. So these electrons are free to rotate, free to move. We call them as free electrons. Okay, free electrons, and they are the responsible for conduction of electricity. They are responsible for conduction of electricity. That's what the thought process was. So now the question comes that electron is bounded with the nucleus. We know that. Why it comes out? Okay, what is the reason? Why it comes out? Can all the electrons be come out? When that happens, all those questions started coming. Okay. So then the scientist actually did little bit of experiment. Again, what they did? They basically took a metal. Let's say this is the metal. And they started heating this. when you started heating, okay, what happens? We see like electrons are coming out. Electrons are coming out. How they realized actually this? So they again took a cathode ray tube. Here they basically put a metal. Okay. Let's say this is my cathode. C. This is my anode. A. And here what I have done, I have connected this to the battery. Correct. So like this, anode is a positive, cathode is a negative. Okay. So now because of that, what is going to happen? Because of this, okay, what we are going to see, like the electron will go here, and then this is a positively charged, this is a negatively charged, so electron will go till here, and electron will, you will see the current is flowing in this, current is flowing. Now this one, what we did, we slightly heated from here back, same voltage, no change, we slightly heated this, and what we see, the current increased. Here if we put an ammeter, current increased. We slightly more heated, current more increased, slightly more heated, current more increased. Correct? We cannot infinitely increase, otherwise the cathode will melt. Okay, we need the solid piece. So there is a limit up to which we can only heat. So that means whenever by heat, what is happening? The more this all these this is the uh, nucleus, proton, positively charged, and the electrons are there. When you give basically more heat, you are giving the energy to the electron. This electron acquire the energy and become free. This kind of emission we call thermoionic emission. Thermionic emission of electron. What is thermionic emission of electron? By suitable heating, sufficient thermal energy is imparted to these electrons, okay, or free electron, and they can come out from the metal. So that means we can take out these electrons from the metal by heating. That was the first thought process. Okay. Second type of experiment they did, okay, instead of giving the heat energy, okay, they started applying the electric field. Let's say I apply the electric field in this direction. Correct? So we know that electron is here. Let's say this is the electron. On this, I will get opposite direction electric field. F is equal to QE. We know that. So that means it will start going. You will get a, so there is a one more force is basically getting applied. Who is pulling this? See, one way is like you give them the heat, you give them the energy so that they can easily go from their own wish. Another is you pull them out. By how? Electric field. So by electric field, electric field, but this field will be very strong to them, approximately like 10 to the power 8 volt per meter range. Okay, by electric field also we can take out the electron, and this happens in a spark plug. Do you know what is a spark plug is?
Not for sure.
Spark plug is used in your bike, car, wherever the 4-stroke engine is there.
Sure, those clip type thingies, sir.
Yeah, like when you start your bike, or start your car, correct? You put some switch, na? And you have the battery in your, what happens during the battery? You are giving this too much strong electric field to the metal.
Right.
Okay? So because of that, the spark get created. Okay? How this works, you will learn that down the line in engineering. Okay? It's a very interesting phenomena. Now, why electric field? That also we can take out the electron. Another kind of thing is, this is by heat, this is by electric field, by light. by light of suitable frequency. Suitable frequency. This is also the another phenomena we also call photoelectric emission. Photoelectric emission. What is the meaning of this? Okay, this was the new thing. That means, suppose if you put some sort of a light. Okay, so let's say this is our metal, exactly same phenomena. This is my cathode, this is my anode. We have put a battery here. We have put basically called ammeter here. Now what we see that this is cathode, this is anode, and electric current is flowing. These electrons are going from here to here. Okay. Now what we see, suppose on this cathode, if I fall a light, let's say the light is falling. Okay, light is falling. And this light, we know till now that it is a wave. Everyone was believed that light is a wave. So that means every wave will have certain frequency, will have certain amplitude, will have certain wavelength. Okay. And will certain have intensity. This is F, this is A, this is lambda, this is I. And we also know intensity is nothing but a proportional to A square. Amplitude more, intensity more. Intensity more, amplitude more. Simple. Correct? We also know V is equal to nu lambda. Okay. Nu lambda. Velocity is equal to. And since every light travels with the speed of light, we can say C is equal to nu lambda. This is also another property we have learned. Now, so when the light is coming, what the scientists realize that, let's say you started giving this light here. So you started with a frequency of 1 hertz, 2 hertz, 3 hertz, 4 hertz, 5 hertz, and you keep on doing. What we see, after a certain amount of frequency is achieved, okay, after a certain amount of it is achieved, then what we see? We see like the more electrons are coming out from this. Your current increased. Okay. So this kind of frequency, okay, we call cutoff frequency. Cutoff frequency. Or minimum frequency required to take out the electrons. Because we are putting this on the metal. Na? So there is a minimum frequency is required. Minimum frequency is required. This is what is observed. Required, okay, to take the electrons out of the matter. Out of matter. Out of matter. And that means these electrons are getting the acquiring the energy from this light. No? So that energy we call another name, we call the work function. Work function. Now the question comes, is this energy acquired by metal? Is it same for all the metal or it varies? Like, if I want to take the electron from the sodium, if I want to take the one electron from the cesium, if I want to take a one electron from iron, will the amount of energy required will be same? That was the question. Answer is no, it is different. It is different. And that's what we have realized. Okay, so scientists did many more experiments to figure that out. They found out that, okay, for the sodium you need 2.75 electron volt energy. Okay, this is the energy required to take out the electron from it. Similarly, cesium was the least, 2.14 electron volt. Platinum was maximum 5.65 electron volt. All these energy we call work function. Work function. And we denote by phi. Electron volt is also the unit of energy. Till now we were learning only the joule. Okay, but joule is a very very big energy. Electron is so small, it doesn't need 1 joule energy. Okay, so it needs a very less. How much is 1 electron volt? 1 electron volt is nothing but 1.6 into 10 to the power minus 19 joule. Okay, so 1 electron volt, it is nothing but energy which is given to the particle so that it is come out from the metal. That energy we call the electron volt. Clear? This is now, from now on, in any kind of atomic level, nuclear level, we always use the energy called electron volt. So we will discuss now, when we discuss atomic, nuclear, all these things down the line, we will be discussing the energy in terms of electron volt, not in terms of joule, because joule is a very very big. Correct? Now the question comes, this energy depends upon what? Work function, because it is varying for every single metal. So work function depends upon, okay, it depends upon what are the properties of metal. Properties of metal. What is the meaning of property? Whether it can easily give the electron or not. Whether it is like, what is the valency of that electron? Okay, how easily it can give that. All these are the properties of the metal. So it depends upon the properties of the metal. Second thing is, it depends upon the nature of the surface of the metal. Question is, why on the nature of the surface? How it has to, what it has to do with the nature of the surface? Is this a surface phenomena? Any thought why the surface is required here?
Uh, uh, like it's related to the number of light radiations being incident. So if there's more surface, then there's more what do you say, emission of electrons.
When we are talking about the metal, there will be a surface, because the metal is actually a physical object. So it will be a physical object. That means it will have a mass, it will have a volume, it's a particle. Correct? It's a physical object. Question is, why it is a dependent on surface? The reason is that if you take any surface, this, because metal can have certain impurities. No? So there are many possibilities. It can have impurities. It can have defects. Like in the chemistry, you would have learned there are so many kinds of defects in the metals. Okay. So because of this, what happens? Let's say you give the light and there is a defect there. Okay. Light is not properly reaching to the electron. So there are many phenomena like that. And this is not just based on thought process. This is actually based on experiment. All these scientists, they have done hundreds or thousands of experiment. Based on these conclusions are coming. It is not just somebody was sitting in the bathroom and came. Okay, thought process came. So it depends upon nature of surface also, because it has impurity, it has defects. So it is quite possible. So these are the two things on which this photoelectric emission depends upon. Question comes, why we are learning photoelectric? Because we are more interested in the light property. Photo, light. What can light do? Okay. Now let's discuss little bit more about this photoelectric effect. Now our journey starts to a new paradigm shift that will change the nature of light. So photoelectric effect. Okay, now this photoelectric emission actually was discovered around 1887 by Hertz. Okay, Hertz. When Hertz was doing his electromagnetic experiments. Okay. Now what he observed like he was doing, so he took a basically called emitter plate. He was the emitter plate. He connected this to the battery, and there was a one more plate. These were the two plates. Okay, and he applied here the high voltage. Because of that, what we see, like there is a spark getting generated here. Electrons are flowing. Okay. Now what he did on this emitter plate, this is called an emitter plate from where the charged particle electrons are coming out. Emitter plate. Remember when the Hertz did this experiment, we were not aware called an electron. Okay, so we are just seeing what he observed, but he couldn't explain this because the electron invention didn't happen. What he observed, let's say he put some light here. Some light is falling. When the light falls, what he see, the ammeter reading increased. Okay, ammeter reading increased. He has put a many different light, but he couldn't explain this because he was not aware there is a called electron exist. Okay, so this was the starting point. Later, okay, later what happened, like there is a famous experiment we call Hallwag and Lenard. He did a series of experiments. He investigated this photoelectric emission around 1900. Around 1900. Okay. So what they did actually, Lenard and they took what do you call, okay. So they took basically again the same thing. They took some evacuated glass plate. This is a glass tube we call evacuated glass tube. Okay. And then here we have the two electrodes. These are the metal electrodes, not carbon. Metal electrodes. So I will write metal electrodes. And then what happened? What he saw that okay, on this, he has put a UV rays, UV lights. Okay, and he connected this to an ammeter. Like this. As of now, circuit is broken. You can't see there should be a current flow. Ammeter should show zero reading, or let's put a galvanometer instead of a meter. So when the light ray fall on this, what we see, actually galvanometer show the reading. Till the time UV rays are there, we see the current is flowing. The moment he removed, we are not getting the current. Oh my God, current stopped. Now the question comes that why this is happening. Okay. So this was the little weird experiment because they were not expecting the current will flow. Circuit is broken. Light cannot do this. Then they created with a different light. They try the visible light. Okay, visible light and other sort of a light, green light, yellow light, blue light, all those things. They varied the okay. They got a different light or different frequencies also. They varied. So, but they couldn't do. But they were not able to explain at this point of time because we were not aware of charge particle electron. Now around this was the time frame around, what do you call, 1900 again, when Helmholtz did a very beautiful experiment. What he did, he took this zinc plate. Okay. So this was, he took a zinc plate. Okay. Initially, what he did, he make sure that this zinc plate does not have any kind of charge particle on it. How he did that? He took an electroscope, and he put on this. And what is he like? On the electroscope, the leaf is not actually expanding. That means it's a neutral. And then he put this zinc plate as a neutral one. And what is he? He is seeing the current I1. Okay. So this is for the zinc, which is a neutral. Then what he gave? He gave the electron to this zinc. Okay. He gave the electron by touching. He were having a one rod, which is an electron negatively charged particle, and then he gave this, and based on that he got a current I2. So here we got a Zn minus. Again he did basically I3 where the Zn plus was there. And what he observed, which current will be more? What do you think out of these three? Again he did the experiment, same thing. What do you think?
I think I3 should be more.
Pardon?
I3 should be more.
I3 should be more. Okay. Why?
Because it's released more electrons, which can like actually give more current.
Okay. So, see, what we are needing the electrons, whichever have the more number of electrons, which are easy to give the electron. Zinc is a metal, it has a tendency to give the electron whenever this is there. So what you observe, I2 is more, then I1, then I3, because this has more number of electron, then this has more number of electron, then this has more number of electron. So if the light falls, first this electron will be good, na? Because it's an extra electron. Then this will give, then this will give. It clearly told that, this experiment clearly told that electrons are the responsible. Okay. And then he did this experiment with the multiple lights. He did for UV rays. He did for what do you call, visible light. He did for many varieties of light, infrared rays, all those things. Okay. So now this was visible, this is clearly visible from here that electron is responsible. Okay. So then the discovery of electron happened around 1897, okay, by J.J. Thomson. Then it was evident that the electron is responsible for this photoelectric emission. Electron is responsible, because till that time we were not aware that something called electron exists. Okay. And now all the things started putting together. All the things that they were doing are making sense. That when you basically give the light, electron acquire energy, it starts traveling in this direction. Okay. So what he also observed, that only particular amount of light only can do this, not every single light. And then he told that okay, we need a light, but every light cannot do, only particular light that has a particular frequency. And he told they should have some threshold frequency. Okay. This is the minimum frequency of the light wave is required to fall. So this is the emitter. Light is a wave, everyone was aware of this time. Light is a wave, so minimum frequency is required for this. Every light cannot do this. Okay. So, and then they did with many experiments like we have done for zinc, they did for cadmium, they did for magnesium, and test. Okay. They responded all these this kind of emission of the electron based on different light frequency. Okay, like some lights was responding to those metals, some light was not responding, so then they define called a threshold frequency. Okay, so for an example, like alkali metals, we know like a lithium, sodium, potassium, cesium, rubidium, all these metals like alkali metals, they are very sensitive to the light. Okay, like even the visible light can do them. So they are visible is also working for them, but for them visible is not working. Why? Because they are sensitive. So it depends upon the property of the metal. It depends upon the surface of the metal, both. So at this point of time, we were aware that electron exists. So finally, we call them, these are called photoelectrons. Photoelectrons, the electrons which can come out by providing the electricity, by providing the light, we call photoelectrons. Okay, so and the phenomena that is utilized for this we call photoelectric. By putting the light we are getting the electricity, so photoelectric. Now let's discuss little bit in detail what happens in this photoelectric, how this is different, what are the different properties are happening in this case. Okay, and we will discuss all the things. So the first thing comes, whenever this photoelectric effect is happening, what is the impact on intensity of radiation? There are many things that we will discuss one by one. Like if I decrease the intensity of the radiation, whichever the light is coming. Intensity is nothing but we know that it's an amplitude. So if I put this kind of light, if I put this kind of light, what is the effect? That's what we would like to understand. Second, we will discuss what is the effect of frequency of light. Remember, light is a wave as of now. We are going in the wave form. What is the frequency of light? Third thing, what is the effect of potential difference? Potential difference between anode and cathode. Correct? What is the nature of the material? Like if I use different materials, what is going to happen? Okay. So all these things we would like to understand. Okay. Apart from that, we will use like what do you call, if you change the distance between cathode and anode, what is going to happen? That is also there. Distance between cathode and anode. Okay. Now there are so many other things, like if I put a in between filter, what is going to happen? If I put this, what is going, so like that we can make, but these are the few critical which is more interested, we are more interested to know. Okay, now let's learn all of them one by one. So again, first let's understand what is the setup is. So I will draw the setup once and then we will assume that is the setup for all the experiments. So what is the setup is? Setup will be nothing but we will take a tube this time. This tube is little a different tube. It is not like a normal tube. In this we will put, this is my cathode, this is my anode, and we are connecting this. This is a negative terminal, this is a positive terminal, and then we connected this. Here we have the ammeter, okay, and then this is cathode, anode, and here what we have put? Here we have put basically some sort of a this. So the light can fall from here. So light will come in the form of wave, ding, 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 and fall on this. This is how this we call here light should not travel. So this is the window we call quartz window. It's like a transparent window. And this is the cathode. Cathode is nothing but here our photosensitive material. That means electron will come out from this. It's a metal. So we call photoelectron material. Photoelectrons. It will reside. Okay. And this is, we know, it's a tube. It's an evacuated tube. There is no air inside that. Evacuated tube. Correct. So this is the experiment that we'll be dealing to understand this phenomena. Okay. So let's move on. Now the first is, if you increase the light, what is going to happen? What do you think? Intensity of light. What is going to happen? Will the current increase? Current decrease?
Maybe there might be no effect. It just depends on the frequency.
So here we are putting the intensity of light. And here what we are putting is current. Okay. Current. When we are saying current, it's a photoelectric current. Photoelectric current. Okay. Now the question is, what is happening? What will happen? So what we realized, what we saw, okay, what we saw basically, that when you increase the intensity, okay, when you increase the intensity, our current also increases. Current also increases. This was the trend that we got. That means this current is actually directly proportional to intensity. I here is the current. Current is directly proportional to intensity. Okay, intensity is basically I. Okay, or let me put like this. Small I, which is a current, is directly proportional to intensity of light. We got a linear graph. Oh my God. If you increase the intensity, current is increasing. If you decrease the intensity, current is decreasing. What is the meaning of intensity actually? Intensity is nothing but you are increasing the amplitude. Earlier this, then you have put a this, then you have put a further this. What we see, the current is increasing as the amplitude increases. Getting? This is what is happened. We will discuss why this is happening. Okay? We will discuss that also. But this was the phenomena that we observed. Now let's see what is happening on the next one. Okay. Potential. Effect of potential on the photoelectric effect. Effect of potential on photoelectric current. So again, the same setup, no change. So this is the same setup. What we are doing, we are increasing this voltage. What do you think will happen? Let's say I increase the voltage. So I am putting here, let's say voltage is 0. Okay. When the voltage is 0 and I am putting a light, what do you think? What will be the current? Will you get any current?
Well, I think so because of like the light is being incident on the plate, so electrons might get emitted.
Yes. So that's correct. So you will get some sort of a current. Fantastic. Let's say at a voltage is 0. This I am putting like a, this is the collector potential. Collector potential. Okay. This side increasing, this side decreasing. We will do both. So let's say at 0 voltage, you are getting some current. When you increase the voltage, what is going to happen? You are increasing the voltage, collector plate voltage. What is going to happen? What will what will be the effect on current? Will it increase, decrease, remain same? What do you think?
I think it should remain.
Okay. What is the meaning of actually this voltages? What's the meaning of the voltage? Voltage means is nothing but you are applying the, this is at the higher potential. Correct? When you are increasing the voltage, let's say 5 volt, that means this was at -5, this is at 0, isn't it? That's the meaning. You are increasing the height, sort of. So that means the electric force between them will be huge. Electric field will be increasing. When the electric field increases, because what we know, electric field is nothing but dB by dr. Na? Voltage increasing, electric field increasing. Electric field increase, force increases. You are pulling that electron with a much faster speed now. So what will happen? You start seeing the more current is flowing in this case. So what we see, current is flowing, increasing. But will the current will keep on increasing infinitely? Answer is no. Why? Who is stopping them? Because after some time, the number of free electrons, they will finish, no? No, because they don't have the infinite number of electrons. No? There's a limitation. After some time, what you will see that the current is becomes saturated because all the electrons required. So what do you see after some time? It becomes more or less flat. It increases and then becomes a flat. That's the phenomena happens. This we call saturation achieved. Saturation means by applying further more voltage, my current is not increasing. Saturation reached, isn't it? Now the next thing is, sometimes this happens now when you are studying from a one method, it is not going in the mind. Not going, you are studying, you are not able to understand. Saturation achieved. What you do? Go outside, play something, come back. Again read. Yeah, it will come back. Okay? Because you have been basically stuck in some sort of a loop which is not working now. Take a fresh air, go outside, change the loop. You will learn that. Now the next thing is, suppose I decreasing the collector plate. Let's say I am putting the negative sign, that means I change this battery. This became positive terminal, this became negative terminal. Now what is going to happen? What do you think?
Sir, what's the condition that we?
So same condition, only thing is like what we have done, we have make this is a positive terminal, this is a negative terminal. That's the only change that we have done. And then
Then nothing.
then what will happen? Will the current flow?
No.
So let's say the electron came. This energy is coming, this energy is coming. Here in this we will have the billions of electron. Now, does all the electron, we have already seen that in the electronic configuration, this is the nucleus. We have a few electron this, we have a few more electron, we have a few more electron, we have a few more electron. Some electron will be here, some will be here, some will be here, some will be here. So when the energy is coming, it can come on this also, it can come on this also, it can come on this also. First they will go. We know that the energy level is keep rising, isn't it? This electron is in the first shell, so energy of the K shell, L shell, M shell, N shell is rising. This has the electron which is residing here has a less energy, more energy, more energy, more energy, even though it is the same electron. Okay, we are the same person, whether we stay in the hut, whether we stay in the flat, whether we stay in the Palmettos or in the Taj Hotel, we are the same person, isn't it? Based on the our capability we are staying. Same thing, whatever the energy level is coming, whether that can take out this, can take out this, can take out this, can take out this, depends. So that means whatever the energy that electron is receiving and coming out, all the electrons, so this is the electron number 1, electron number 2, electron number 3, electron number 4, will they have the same energy? Answer is no, they will have different energy. It will not be exactly same for all the electrons. Their energy will vary, isn't it? So that means when I'm giving the electron, when I'm giving the light to this electron, few of the electron will still have more energy. They acquired and just came out. So that means they will try to go, but there will be a repulsion. Because why? This has become also a negative terminal. Na? This is a negative now. This is a positive. Electron is going because it has acquired certain velocity. Velocity. And after some time, what will happen? Only few electron will pass here, will reach. When you further increasing, what will happen? This strength is repulsion strength is rising, repulsion is rising, repulsion is rising, repulsion is rising. So number of electron will keep decreasing, and then what you see, current will actually flow like this. Ding 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 ding. Stopped. After that, no current. This is the current that we are flowing. So current basically first decreasing becomes zero. Why this is happening? Because here is the negative electrode, and here also we have the, sorry, this is a positive electrode and this is the negative. We have changed this, but the electrons are coming from this. So electron will come, but they will get repelled by negatively charged particle. So only those can reach which has the more energy. Now the voltage at which the total current stops, okay, we call cutoff potential or stopping potential. Are you getting this phenomena?
So, sir, we're just reversing what do you say, potential direction.
Yes. So what we have done, the initial case was, so this is our plate, this is the cathode, okay, light is coming from here. This cathode initially we have put a negative terminal and this was positive terminal. So this is positive, this is negative. Now what will happen? Electron is coming out from this. So electron will start going in this direction. And since this is a positively charged, it will be attracted initially. It will be attracted. That means if I increase this potential here, what is going to happen? My current will increase. And after a certain interval of time, it will become saturated. But if I change this entire scenario, I put this is the same same emitter. Here what I have done, we have basically changed this. That means this has become a negative plate now, and this has become a positive plate. But electrons are still falling on this. Light is falling on this. Electrons are coming out from this. Now this electron is a negatively charged particle. This is also negative. But still it will go because it has acquired some velocity. Because of its momentum, it will keep on going, and only few will be able to go against that repulsion. Only few. And if you keep on rising this, what will happen? You will get a certain voltage at which none of the electron can go here because it is so much repulsion. At that time, current will become zero. Are you getting now? Understanding what is happening?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, suppose in the same thing, suppose I increase the intensity of this light. Intensity. What is going to happen now? Intensity increased. Here I is the current, not intensity. So don't get confused with that terminology. I will write it's a current. Will it have any effect? What we have just now discussed. If the intensity increases, current increases, isn't it? So that means in this case, if my intensity is increasing, what I see? I will see the graph is shifted above like this. So this is my intensity 1, this is my intensity 2. If I get one more, I will get an intensity 3, something like this. So here we know intensity 3 is greater than intensity 2 is greater than intensity 1. But what will happen if I, in the other side, here, what we observe that here also decreasing, but we are getting exactly the same point. That is no change. This we call V naught or minus V naught basically. This is the stopping potential. Okay. What is the meaning of that? The meaning of this experiment was what we can say all the photoelectrons emitted from the cathode metal do not have the same energy. That's the first thing we discussed. Correct? Does not have the same energy. Okay. What is the photoelectric current is? Small I is zero when stopping potential is sufficient to repel even the most energetic photoelectron. Okay. So let's say if you have the maximum kinetic energy of an electron is K max, correct? And stopping potential is there, which is a V naught, correct? At which basically you are getting none of the electron is reaching to the anode. Now if you decrease this, that means few electron will reach, no? So let's say this in this case you realize that okay, V naught you got some, let's say 4 volt. That means at a 4 volt if you apply, none of the electron is reaching here. That means if I do 3.9 volt, few of the electrons will reach, no? That means some of the electron will have this much energy equivalent to this. So that the maximum energy of electron will have how much? E into V naught. Okay. On this the numerical also comes. We will discuss that down the line. Correct. Now what else? What else we realize from here? Any other learning? We are writing the learning. Anything else?
distance between anode and panel.
No, we are saying with this, with the same experiment, like with the same change in potential. What else? What the next learning? Another learning the in the intensity also, like this curve. When you are increasing, what do you see? You see like that saturation current or current, saturation current, I saturation. Okay, what happens? It is increases with increase in intensity of light. Intensity of light. As you increase the intensity of the light, what do you see? Saturation current is also increasing. Okay? This shows that the more electrons are emitting per second, with the more electrons are emitting, more electrons are emitting per second with increasing in intensity. Okay, as the intensity increases, more number of electrons are happening. And then we learned about the stopping potential. What the stopping potential is? Stopping potential, what we realized? Stopping potential okay, is independent of intensity. Like we increase the intensity here, but stopping potential remains same. This is not increased. We didn't get this here. No, it remains same. That means it is independent. Getting? So this is basically a very important result. Now, so for a given frequency, see all these things what we have learned. The light frequency is basically kept constant. Stopping potential is independent of intensity for a given frequency of light. Frequency is constant here because down the line we are going to discuss what will happen if we change the frequency also. Is this clear? These are the four important conclusions that we got from this. When we increase the potential, when we decrease the potential. Any doubt? I am asking.
No, sir, no doubts.
Ah. Now let's learn what do you call effect of frequency now. Effect of frequency. Okay. Frequency of incident radiation basically. Incident radiation. Now the same experiment what we did now this time. Okay. We will just extend the same thing. We took this phenomena. Okay, we took a collector plate. Same experiment. We were having the collector plate. We are increasing the voltage here. And this time we are increasing this also. We are increasing the frequency first. Okay. Okay. First, let's plot only for one, and then we will do that. So let's say we know that at zero collector plate potential. So here we have the collector plate potential. So here we will know that we will get some sort of a saturation current. It will increase and then acquire the saturation. And we know that here it will go something like this. Something like this. This is at a particular frequency. Okay, let's say f1 or nu1, anything is okay. Now, and this is our stopping potential, let's say v1. Okay, it will be minus v1 basically, and this is the current that we are plotting. Now suppose I increase the frequency this time. I did a nu2. What is going to happen? What do you think? What will happen if I increase the voltage with the second frequency? Let's say the first time this is coming with some 5000 hertz. Now I change to 5000 or 6000 hertz. What is going to happen? What do you think? If the frequency increased, what will happen?
I think stopping potential should be more.
No, no, I'm asking about the saturation current here. This side.
Okay, it should be more.
So what we observe there is no change. That means it is going like this. No change. Exactly same. No change in saturation current. So with a change in frequency, no change in saturation current. Oh my god. That means all the result that we are thinking, we are getting something ulta pulta only. Okay. We are getting that's it. Now, what will happen to the stopping potential? Like if I decrease, what we observe? We observe basically stopping potential is actually varying. Suppose if I put a one more, what we see? So this is V2, this is V3. Okay, this is what we observe. So what is the conclusion basically? The conclusion is when the frequency varies, then saturation current remains same, no change. Okay, saturation current remains same, no change. But what happens from this stopping potential? Okay, stopping potential is becoming more negative for higher frequency. Stopping potential is more negative for higher frequency. That means here I can say here is nu2, nu3 is there, nu3 is greater than nu2 is greater than nu1. Correct? What is the meaning of this? What do we understand with this experiment? What is happening? Any thought?
That frequency has
Yeah, Bhupesh. Yeah. So what do you observe like from this? See what is happening when you are giving the higher frequency. Okay, so this is our experiment. In this, when the high frequency value is coming. Okay? Remember when we are saying high frequency means amplitude is same. So that means one is like this wave. Another wave we are having, it is the same amplitude, only the frequency has increased. Number of waves per unit time is more. Same amplitude. Intensity is same. We are not changing intensity here. Okay. So frequency. So basically what it tells us that whenever you get a more frequency, that means the electron which is coming out from this has acquired the more energy, because then only in order to stop this you need to apply the more potential. isn't it? So what is the meaning? Greater the frequency of incident light, greater is the maximum kinetic energy of the photoelectron, because in order to stop that only you are applying this, na? Are you getting that?
So more frequency means more energy is given to the electrons.
More energy is given to the electron. That's correct. That's correct. So more energy is given, so it has acquired more energy. In order to stop that till here, we are getting this. See, this stopping potential is basically is like an indicator that how we will know it has acquired more energy. We stop that. If we need the more effort to stop, that means it has more energy. If we need to apply the less force to stop this or less energy, that means it has less energy. For an example, suppose you would like to stop a truck, or you want to stop a cycle, where you need a more effort, obviously truck. That means truck has more energy, isn't it? So that's how this is the indicator. So another important result that we have got, okay, greater the frequency, greater the frequency of incident light, greater the maximum kinetic energy. Greater the max kinetic energy. Okay. So greater the max kinetic energy, hence more stopping potential to stop them. To stop them. Okay. So this is basically the conclusion of this. Now what we have done basically, we let's say plot this. So we have, let's say we took a metal. Okay. So let's say here we put a frequency and here we put a stopping potential. Okay. V naught on this direction. And we would like to see what is going to happen. Suppose I keep on increasing this frequency. I have certain frequency. Ding, 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 ding. Again, I increased further. Ding, 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 ding. Further, I increased. Ding, 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 ding. Amplitude is same, remember. Intensity is same for all. Intensity is nothing but an amplitude. Same intensity, but frequency is varying. Then what do we observe? We say, so initially when you have a zero frequency, that means we will not have the any kinetic energy, correct? So stopping potential will be zero because kinetic energy is not there. It is like a stationary object you are stopping. When the frequency is increasing, you will reach to a frequency that we call minimum threshold frequency, that is required, only minimum energy that you need to take out the electron. This is the minimum frequency. After this, if you further increase, what we see, the stopping potential is increasing linearly. Oh my god. Okay. And then let's say you change the some other metal. This is the metal A. Let's say you took the another metal. We know that every metal has the different threshold frequency. Let's say you took the another metal which has this one, mu naught. And for this also we observed. This is the metal B. So what the conclusion we get from here? See, these are very, very beautiful experiment and amazing conclusion. And they make sense that V naught varies linearly with frequency. Frequency. Okay. That's the first conclusion. Second, we have a minimum cutoff frequency. cutoff frequency, mu naught, for which our stopping potential is how much? V naught is 0. Okay. So basically what we have got from here, from this conclusion, we have got two conclusions out of this. All these scenarios put together, there are, first conclusion is that kinetic energy of electrons varies linearly with frequency. Okay, but independent of intensity. It doesn't depend upon intensity. Whatever the amplitude is there of the wave, it doesn't matter whether you put like a this much wave or this much wave. Your kinetic energy doesn't depend upon this. Second thing, suppose if you fix the frequency, okay, for given frequency, frequency nu, okay, for a given frequency, if you see it is the previous one, if you have lower than cutoff frequency, which is mu naught, okay, no photoelectric emission is observed. We need some mu naught, no photoelectric emission observed. That means you need a minimum mu naught. Beyond that, if you do, electrons will not come out. No photoelectric emission observed. Even if you increase, even if intensity is increased, however intensity you increase, doesn't matter. If the frequency is not met, minimum condition, nothing is going to happen. Okay, so it is like however you put an effort for the JEE main exam, if the 12th is not passed, you can't go there. Simple. Okay, same thing. So first criteria is meet mu naught. Now the last one is, okay, yeah, this is basically the two is, and this lower than this mu naught, we know the threshold frequency. So finally the conclusion came, frequency play a major role. Okay, frequency play a major role. Intensity is here, doesn't matter. Intensity here doesn't matter. Are you getting? This is the conclusion. Kinetic energy is dependent upon frequency. For a given frequency, no photoelectric effect is observed if it is lower than mu naught. Clear? Are you getting?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, yeah, I think we can pause here. Okay, we'll continue our journey in tomorrow class. Fine?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, so let's discuss. Tomorrow, I think just let me know what time you are fine in the afternoon. Okay. And we will do that.
Yeah.
Okay, fine then. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Bye, sir.
Bye.